At a certain point in your business journey, it becomes really obvious. You can't keep doing everything yourself and expect to keep growing. If you want more revenue, more impact, or honestly, just more breathing room in your day to day, you need support. But what often happens next is where things start to go sideways. You hire help, and suddenly your expenses jump, your profit margins shrink, and your business feels way more complicated than it did before. Instead of feeling relieved, you're managing people, fixing mistakes, and wondering if bringing on a team actually made things harder for you. And I see this all the time, especially with solopreneurs who are already making solid money. There's this tendency to overhire or worse, overpay for support that doesn't actually require that level of expertise. So you end up paying premium rates for relatively basic tasks, your margins take a huge hit, and you're still stuck in the weeds trying to hold everything together. That's exactly why I'm so excited about today's conversation with Brittany Braswell, because her approach challenges a lot of the assumptions that we have about hiring. Instead of jumping straight into expensive team members, Brittany has built her business by strategically bringing on interns, creating a way to delegate, build systems, and get support without immediately increasing overhead. She's also an alum of my business coaching program. We started working together back in 2020, and it's been so incredible to watch how her business has continued to grow and evolve over the last almost 6 years. In this episode, we're digging into how to start delegating before you feel ready, what most CEOs get wrong about hiring, and how using interns the right way can help you get out of the day to day busy work without adding more stress, more overhead, or more complexity to your business. Let's get into it. All right, everyone. I am so excited to have back on the show Brittany Braswell. Welcome to the Nourish CEO podcast, Brittany.
Thank you, Laura. It's so fun to be back after, I don't know, 5 years maybe.
I should have looked before we hit record how long it's been because it was originally the Fed and Fearless podcast. And you were
Yes.
on there talking about eating disorders. And it was funny because one of the last interviews I did as I was signing off, I was like, see you next week on the Fed and Fearless podcast. I was like, no, I shouldn't say that. That's not the right title anymore. So even I'm, like, still stuck in, it's like when you've been on in a business this long, it's like, sometimes I forget, "Oh, we're not doing that
Yeah.
anymore. I gotta move on." So, anyway, super excited to have you here, and I wanted to just get our audience acquainted to you. I think, you and I have been in our each other's world for a few years now, and you went through our MBA program. I don't remember if it was the first
It was
round.
beta. Yeah,
Was
it
it
was
the
very
beta?
first
Wow,
round.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
OG
2020.
OG NBA.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, so 2020 and your business has made some really big transitions in the last 3 to 6 months. So I'm excited to chat about that. Do you want to just give us like I don't want to say the nutshell version, but what do people need to know about you and why you're even talking about the topic of hiring an intern now?
Yeah, oh my goodness. So back in 2020, I was moving into private practice. And at that point, I had been working in an eating disorder treatment center setting for, I don't know, 3, 4 years. And in other settings before that where I worked with a ton of interns. If you are a dietitian or nutrition professional, you may know that there is a professional practice dietetic internship you have to go through. And I was a preceptor for a ton of interns. And then I also took on some non dietetic intern students just in a shorter internship capacity. And I loved my experience going through an internship program, but so much of it was so unorganized. And sometimes I would get into rotations where I walked out and I was like, I'm not taking anything away from that. I felt like I just did busy work. And so when I went into private practice, I knew the power of internships and I knew how helpful they were, the way that I had structured them before private practice. And it was a no-brainer, like almost first step for me. I think you were probably the very first business decision I made to like, I need a coach. And so I started working with you in 2020 and right like the same time, I was like, all right, now I got my direction going. I know I'm creating this group program. I need to bring on my interns. And so it was a no-brainer for me because I knew how valuable the mutual relationship can be with interns, the value that they would add to my business and the value that I could add to them. And so without thinking about it, I had just been running multiple rounds of internships really since almost the very beginning of my private practice. And it has just finessed and grown in such a way that I will not ever run a business without interns. Most I think I've ever gone is about a month in between where we wrapped up right around the end of their like school semester. And I took about 3 or 4 weeks to finesse some things to improve the processes so that it would be even easier the next round. And it's just been like a major foundational bread and butter piece of my business. And so I'm really excited to chat about it because I think there's so many lies and misbeliefs that business owners get stuck in that we can dive into when it comes to delegating and hiring a team. But I love it. It's one of the most financially beneficial things. And it is one of the most leadership pushing, uncomfortable growth things that I have ever done and continue to do on a month by month basis in my business.
I'm so impressed that you have been able to do it for so long because I feel like the few times that I've had interns in my business, it to me felt like a distraction from what I
Mhm.
actually needed to be doing. And I would
Yeah.
have them do things and I'm like, "Okay, this is, like, not super helpful, but I agreed to do this." So, for me, it always ended up feeling like I was basically just, like, helping somebody else get experience versus having any sort of significant benefit to my business.
Yes.
So, I'm sure I was not
Mhm.
doing it the right way, but, I think that's why I've generally historically been a little shy to use an intern because in my mind, I'm like, "This is actually taking me more time and energy to focus on the intern than it is to even
Mhm.
just either do the work myself or hire somebody that would be already ready to do it and not need so much hand-holding. So, I'm sure I made some mistakes. What do you think might be some of the mistakes I made when I had those internship experiences?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think the first question I'd probably ask you is, was this like a somebody who rotated with you, like in a structured internship program, or was this interns you brought on like of your own volition that weren't in a DI program?
It honestly, I don't remember if it was specifically the program that you would go through for credit. This is where I'm, like, not even sure. I'm like, "Did they even get credit for this?" Or was it just kind of like an opportunity to learn? But yeah, I went through basically, I would get emails from some sort of
Mhm.
program, and they were like, "Hey, we're looking to place people. Let us know, if you have spots." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, let's see what happens. Just put it out there." And I have not done it since. So
Yeah. So, well, I love that you mentioned this, Laura, because this is there's probably like one or two things that get mentioned to me so often, and most of them are from people who have had internship experience before or internship, like being a preceptor or saying, "Sure," like, someone reached out and wants to know if they could shadow or work with me for the summer, and they're like, "Brittany, never again. I will not have interns. It's draining." I had to, like, handhold them, and I was trying to find projects, and that is very, very fixable, but it's also super common, and it's one of the reasons that so many people I have worked with that have worked with interns before, like, I don't know, like, are you pulling my leg about this? But my interns so I had 2 types of interns. I have dietetic interns that, are at a university setting in a graduate school program, and they're with me for about 3 weeks at a time. So I do partner with some universities for that. That is also very doable to structure in a way that is not time or energy draining on you. Although I will say working with university students in that capacity, I build in an extra hour a week for that because they do have objectives they have to meet and certain experiences they need, but I can still keep it down to like 2 hours a week or less working with them. My interns that I can structure the way I want, I spend about 20 minutes managing them each week, max. Sometimes more if I say, "Hey, let's hop on a call and chat about a project that we're getting ready to start." But I don't know that I've ever really spent more than an hour a week managing or reviewing intern work, because I've got it systemized now and I've got it structured in a way that allows me to not micromanage, which is really hard for me. I know you talk about the DISC assessment a lot. I'm definitely a C type, when it comes to CEOs. I'm very strategic, and I kinda lean towards the CD end of things. So I really like to move quickly. I like to make decisions. I don't want to feel like I have to micromanage or hold an intern's hand because that is mentally draining for me. So lots of business owners I think have been in that same position, Laura, where it's like, Like, I don't even feel like I'm getting any kind of advantage from this. This is all for the intern. So it's definitely a pretty simple fix to get a few different things in place to help with that.
Do you have any sense of what would be the likely cause of a situation like that, or is it kinda different depending on who you're talking to?
Yeah. So for if you're in a situation where you feel like I'm just constantly having to like find something for them to do, or I'm having to heck and make sure they do everything well or at a decent level of quality. Nobody's ever gonna do anything exactly the way you would, but something that I teach and something that I do within my own internship program is before an intern comes in, they are specifically applying for a very specific position. It's not just, "Hey, I'm applying to be, a Joyfield Eater intern," or applying to be an intern with the nurse CEO. It's, "Hey, we have 6 positions available," or, "We have 2 positions available, and here are the specific types of tasks you're gonna do." And so they know when they come in that they are applying for hopefully some things that they are really excited to learn, that you have already structured and have got some processes in place. And depending on your personality type or your kind of general nature when it comes to leadership and delegation, the things to have in place beforehand will vary a little bit. But I would say the main things you need really clear roles. So again, you need to know what specifically are they doing? It needs to be something repeatable every single week. They don't need to have a new set of tasks every week. I think the only exception I would say to that is I have a couple of interns that, with their position, the task might change a little bit if I'm in a launch season, like in a 6 or 8 week launch runway. They might have something that's just slightly tweaked, but even that's going to be pretty repeatable. So having a clear description, clear role defined, having a very simple, repeatable training process that removes you from the handholding is 100% essential for your mental clarity and capacity as a CEO. Because I love my babies and I love holding their hands, but I do not want to hold the hands of my 20 and 30 something year old interns. And so having a very clear training process and then having their tasks ready to go so they know exactly what to do each and every week that they show up, how to track their hours, what they're doing, and how to do it in a way that reaches a certain level of quality and expectation. Those are the main things that you need to have in place.
Mhm.
And there's some simple ways to do that, but it's also really easy to go, "I think I have something together," and then maybe it works with one intern, but then you add a second one in, or somebody comes in the next time and you're like, "Okay, well, it's a little different," or it feels like it's falling apart.
Yeah.
So, I think that's a really common, pitfall for a lot of people.
I feel like my biggest issue has always been, and because I've done lots of internships, I've done lots of entry level jobs. It's been a while, and like I feel like I'm probably at a phase of life where I don't have as much empathy for that as I probably should, as far as like, somebody being brand new and being like learning, right? Because I mean, I've been doing, even this business is at this point 12 plus years old, so it's like you gotta forget, "Oh, I didn't know how to do this all when I first started."
Yeah.
But I think for me, just looking back at the experiences I had when I was either doing internship level work, or, my first job was like $15 an hour doing some pretty intense business support stuff for an online business owner. Like, I think back to how I operated in that role, and I was like, I didn't really need to be told what to do. I was always like, going after things and showing up with this like, let me do the best job possible type of
Mhm.
mindset. And I think looking back on that, I am very admittedly impatient with other people not showing up like that. And so I think,
Mhm.
I, like I said, I clearly have a little bit of a chip on my shoulder about what people should do when they care about what they're doing, and, wanna do their work well. And it makes me sound like an old person being like, "Oh, kids these days," or whatever. But I do think that I have a really hard time slowing down and processizing things, because I am like very high DI on the disc, and definitely like the decisive CEO as far as our CEO types are
Mhm.
concerned, and it's like I hate slowing down for other people.
Uh-huh.
And so it's something that I I know if I wanted to have interns and even employees, like, honestly, if any of my team members are listening, I'm sorry that I'm like this, but just generally having people help, for me, it's very against my nature to slow down and go really detailed. But I know that that can be very important, especially in the beginning of things, to take the time to do that in a way that I'm sure can be replicated moving forward. It's probably not something you have to like constantly be slowing down every time you have a new intern come in, but I'm sure there's at least one part of the process that requires some slowing down on what you're doing.
Yeah, so the way that I've seen this be most successful because this is very I'm like smiling, giggling as you say this because this is very like B type oriented, and that's part of where I live, and so it's really easy to for a D type CEO to go, I explained this one time. Why aren't they doing it correctly? Why do they keep asking questions? So part of the thing that helps with that is having some SOPs in place but and even if you're a business owner and you have some SOPs, I set up SOPs sometimes a little bit differently for interns than I would before I bring a hire on because their training process, I have removed myself from a lot actually through the type of SOPs that I do. And it takes away a lot of the hand holding, but it also builds their confidence when they know, okay, here is exactly what I need to get done. And they have really defined deliverables. So I do take a 4 week period where I'm spending 30 minutes to an hour max a week, like, in communication with them, but it's more frequent. So, like, my interns I have right now, they're in week 7 of this last round. I check in with them occasionally once during the week, but typically we have a end of the week check-in via Voxer, and that's on their workflow every week. They know, "Check in with me, let me know what's completed. Do you have any exams or projects coming up?" Because my current interns are all college students. That's not always the case. That just happened to be this round who gets selected. And so it's when they have defined deliverables, when they have a really simple system and an SOP process that allows them to not be afraid to ask questions, but to also not feel like they have to ask a question to get it done.
Mhm.
The types of questions that they ask now are, "Hey, I'm doing it this way. Like, aesthetically, is this what you want it to look like? Or is this in your voice? Can you review this?" And so for the first 4 weeks, I spend a little more time with like quality control with what they're creating, or with what they're repurposing, or I have interns that don't do any content creation that are like admin operations. And so I'm not having to quality control them, but like I had an intern that was doing some inbox management. And so she would write an email, save it to drafts, and then I would check it just to see like, hey, is this how you would go about? And then I would have ways to give them feedback. But after week 4, here's an extra pro tip. If you have an intern, after week 4, I do an evaluation where we hop on a call. They do like a self-evaluation. I evaluate them and then we hop on a call and we have some conversation. We look at how they ranked themselves on different things. I give them feedback and I've given them feedback throughout the 4 weeks, but this is like our determination point where we go, yes, things are the snuff if you want to put it that way. Like you're doing great, or here's some ways to improve. And that's kind of the deciding factor on gives them a way to back out and say, hey, this isn't as much of a fit as I thought it was going to be. Or for me to say, hey, with the training and opportunity you've had for feedback, haven't seen you be able to implement this. So let's either change your seat on the bus and give you a different role that I think you'd thrive in a lot better, or we're going to take a step back from the internship and not continue. So they know that ahead of time. And that gives them an opportunity to very gracefully be able to say, hey, this didn't work as well. Or for me to say, hey, we need to make some additional changes.
Mhm. And I guess there's not a lot to lose if it's an unpaid internship, right? I mean, I'm sure
Right.
they want to do a good job, but it's not like, "Oh, I'm relying on this for my to pay my rent or something." So if it doesn't
Right.
go well, it's like, "Oh, just not a fit," right? Versus, all the stuff that's involved when you have a paid employee or a team member that is actually,
Right.
making the money that they need from that role.
Yeah. Yeah. And it allows you to improve your own processes as a CEO to go, okay, what fell apart, what didn't work well. So when you do get ready to bring, another intern on or someone in a paid capacity, you're not wasting all that time and money paying them and training them with a really messy process that's either yielding results that are ineffective or they're not producing, either the level of quality or the amount of quantity, output that you need. And so interns become a really fantastic way to force you into some structure and force you into some systems. And it's also a really fantastic way to push you out of that mindset of we can do this faster and I'm always going to be able to do it better than someone else. So let me just do it. Um,
Mhm.
because if you get stuck in that mindset on it's faster for me, it's not faster for me if you have to do it forever. So when you can get to that point of saying, I can test this out with an intern and I can tweak just like you would you like if you're gonna launch a program, it's your data is not gonna be where it ends up, right? Like the first time you run something, you're gonna put out minimum viable product. You want it to be quality, but it's not gonna be perfect. You're gonna have to tweak it. And the same thing goes with internships and with your training processes and with any kind of system that you set up. It's gonna refine as you go, but you can't wait till you think it's perfect before you open it up.
Mhm. It's funny because I literally just had a team meeting this morning, and one of our team members mentioned how she really likes to be alone a lot. And I only bring this up because, sometimes I feel bad about giving people certain tasks. I'm like, "Oh, this sounds so redundant and repetitive." Not redundant, it's just like it's very structured, it's very repetitive, it's, the same thing, there doesn't require a ton of brain power. And I'm like, as she's telling us, "Oh, yeah, I'm happy to do that," like, asking, like, "Yes, I will do the work that you're talking about." It just reminded me that everybody's so different as far as what their
Yeah.
skills are, what their preferences are, and I think that's been a challenge for me in hiring in general, is just this understanding that just because I hate being told what to do does not mean other people hate being told what to do. Actually, a lot of people really like being told what to do, and they're very happy
Yes.
to be told what to do. So, that's always been a challenge for me, is like getting out of my own head about, what makes a good working environment. Because
Mhm.
for me, it's like I need autonomy. I need to be able to influence things. I need to be able to, make decisions and take action and do things without needing other people's input. And for the roles that I used to have before I had my business, that was really appreciated, that like the guy that I was working for could really kind of just give me a general sense of what he wanted done, and I would go execute at a level that was honestly beyond what I was even being paid. But I think that's the thing I always tend to forget, or just, I need to be reminded on a regular basis that there are a lot of people who really do appreciate more structure and more, here's the process to follow, here's what done looks like. And it's just such a it's not the way my brain works. And so to
Yeah.
me, that feels so restrictive and like soul crushing. But other people actually really appreciate all of that structure.
Yes. Yeah, that's probably your, I-type side coming in, because you're a people person, right? But I know you tend to lean more towards the, do the task, get it done, and then also people and relationships and relationship building, and that's something that I see a lot in the students and the CEOs that I work with that are very I-type, that are like, "Let me give you this idea," or, "Let me tell you, what I would like to get done," and it's the relational side is beautiful, but when we start talking about structure, they're like, "Structure is gonna limit my creativity." It doesn't. It actually protects your creativity because when you have the structure in place that you can hand off, even when you have structure in place for yourself and this is what I do first and next, and here's what comes after that, then you get the brain power back because you're not trying to remember steps or you're not trying to remember, "Hey, what do I focus on next?" You go, "Okay, I've got this 1 hour block to brainstorm or to content create or whatever it might be," and it actually opens up space for creativity and clarity. So I think that's a really common, struggle or, lie that a lot of entrepreneurs believe, especially when they're super relational or super creative. And now the structure feels restricting. But to your point, Laura, so many people need and want that structure, even if it's just in the beginning to get them going until the process or the structure of whatever they're following becomes routine and natural, and then they go, "Now I'm not having to think about the process, now I can creative with it.
And I think the thing I tend to forget is that I do have a process. I do have guidelines, boundaries, things that I just know to do, but it's because I've been doing it for, years and years, over a decade at this point. And I think that's where it's like pulling out the parts that are already there. It's not like it's creating something that doesn't exist and it's just arbitrarily constricting, right?
Mhm.
Um, so when people think about hiring an intern versus like a more, I don't know, I say employee, but honestly, I think a lot of people are hiring contractors or somebody who's coming in as like a subject matter expert. What would be the reason to go for an intern instead of somebody who's like coming in already trained on a particular topic?
Well, I'd say depending on where you are in your business, and not even just the amount of time you've been in your business or the amount of structure you have, but looking at what are the costs to operate your business and how much are you making? What is that profit margin? What's the gap? How much do you actually have to play with to hire someone? And I try to generally follow a rule of thumb on whatever a task is. If it's something I would be doing, and I hire somebody that's like whatever my hourly rate is per se, like about 25 to 30% or so of that, can I hire somebody at that rate to do the job? And depending on what the job is, if you're trying to decide, do I bring on somebody that is paid that has the skills already, or do I bring someone on maybe who's fresh, who has some ideas, but they're a little more green and we're gonna train them like from the ground up. I think part of that is deciding how much financial resources do you have and time resources do you have to put into training? And are you gonna get pretty pretty quick ROI on your investment for paid employees? 'Cause I'm not against paid employees. I have 2. I have 2 part-time contractors. I have a podcast manager, and I have a VA who used to be an intern. So my intern moved into a VA position because after she graduated, she was one of those people that I was like, your quality of work is great. And now I don't have to train you because I don't have to pay the however many hours it takes for you to go through training because you're already trained. So that saved me a ton of money. She already knew my processes. And she actually came into being an intern. She was already a paid VA, but she wanted to do my internship, which was unpaid. And she was able to learn some skills and some systems she didn't have yet. And now she's able to take those skills she developed and specialize in a couple things where she can charge more to other people. So there's a ton of advantages when it comes to an intern, and you have to use your judgment as a CEO. Sometimes that's partly a gut decision, and you may have the intuition to know pretty quickly, is this a paid position kind of fit? But if you're not sure, or if you don't have consistent income or enough profit margin to just really confidently say, if this doesn't work, I'm okay with this money kind of going out the door and I'm going to learn and refine and improve it next time. But one of the things I really love about bringing an intern in, especially if it's a brand new position that I'm looking to hire, if it's not something that requires my licensure, my specific voice, a lot of times I can pass it off to somebody else. And so the question becomes, is this something that I can that somebody really needs to have a high level of skill to complete? Or is this something that like I'm I'm good at enough because I've been running it that I can train somebody. So most of the time, when it's things that they start doing repetitively, they get better at it than me. I'm not about to go in and try to post to Pinterest now because I have somebody who does that and they do it so often. They've gotten faster at it than me, and it is better quality than if I'm context switching, trying to go from recording a podcast episode to creating a Pinterest graphic and then a caption and scheduling it. And so, all of that to say, most of the tasks, especially if you're not going to get a substantial or fairly quick ROI, there's no harm in trying out intern first. And if you feel like they're just not getting the quality level, then you either go back to, as a CEO, is there a gap in the training process that I can correct that will improve this? Or is this something that I need to hand to someone else? So
Mhm.
when I launched my intern, or when my podcast first launched, I brought somebody on in a paid capacity because I didn't know anything about how do I edit audio and how do I do this and that. And I could look it up and I can do it now. But in the beginning, I needed somebody to get that off the ground quickly. So I hired somebody with that skill. So there's again, there's some gut response to this, but there's also a lot of, like I said, it kind of forces you to really know your process so that even if you do bring somebody on in a paid capacity, if you try it from an intern perspective first, you can get your processes nailed down. And then if you want to pass it off to a paid employee or contract position later, you're not having to explain the processes to them. You've already got them nailed down.
Mhm. So you mentioned Pinterest as one example. Are there any other examples of tasks in your business that you've really enjoyed or had a good experience giving to an intern?
Blogging and podcast research because I have an intern. I don't love writing, can talk all day. Put me in front of a mic or put me on a stage and I will talk until somebody asks me to leave. But I don't love to write. And so most of my blogs are some sort of repurposed form of my podcast because I do work with a lot of people who the vast majority of them come to me from the podcast. So they love audio, but some people want to see a written version of something, or having something written helps to boost SEO and bring people to the podcast where I can really communicate verbally. And so I have an intern who loves to write. She's a little bit of a nerd when it comes to formatting and what things look like. And I'm like, "Just throw the transcript up and like let that do its work." And so she's able to take my podcast episode transcripts, put them into beautiful blog format, create graphics that go with it that I'm like, I get overly perfectionistic when it's a graphic because I want it to look a certain way, and then I end up spending way too long on it. And she can put out 2 blogs a week from my podcast log or whatever, the backlog in 2 hours or less sometimes, where it would have taken me like 4 because it's something she enjoys and she has a systematic process for it now. So blogging is a big one. And then have interns do research for things like some of my speaking events or to help like, hey, I know I'm going to be talking to this person, but can you pull up some specific information that's going to help me serve, this speaking event better based on the people that are coming. And so some of the research logistic things that we can do, but they're not generating an ROI until I actually implement and carry it out, or they're tasks that I'm going to, because they're not in my zone of genius, I'm gonna just spend more time thinking on, second guessing, and trying to be perfectionistic about. I can
Mhm.
pass those things off to people who love to do those, and they're gonna get them done a lot more efficiently than I will.
Mhm. How do you find your interns right now? Because it sounds like you have your own process for even hiring them in the first place.
I do. This, I will say, is going to depend on your business and what type of positions you have. So, the probably the 3 primary way, and I use multiple channels to reach potential interns, but the top 3 for me are my email list, because depending on the position, I have very specific positions where somebody that's already on my email list already is in my world, they're familiar with my content, they are on board with the mission that I have, they know the vision of where like, what the company is doing. So certain positions, that's a really great fit for. Another is universities. Have very strategic relationships with some different universities where I have already had interns before, and I may only advertise specific positions to them and say, hey, I have these 3 spots open. I have historically had really great college, experiences with college students and these types of positions. And then I advertise on my podcast as well. Similar to my email list in the sense of having somebody who is familiar with my content or who like has been wanting to work with me, but maybe hasn't had the financial resources to do so, but they are gleaning from the podcast. And so they're an unpaid student, essentially, and so they know what I do. So for me, those are the 3 I teach, I don't know, 8 or 9 inside my program, but for me, those are the ones that I have found to be most fruitful in getting really high quality interns.
Mhm. And is the hiring process similar or different to hiring an actual paid employee? And if so, how is it the same or different?
It's very similar. the thing that I will say that I drop from the internship process that I don't for a paid employee is a video interview. I have I I'll send all of my potential interns to a landing page on my website where they can see the positions that are available, but they can also see what is the company about? Who do we serve? What's our mission? I'll give them links where they can get familiar with my content if there's somebody that's brand new that maybe a university director sent it out to some of their students and my world is brand new to them. So I'll send everyone to a landing page, have an application process where they answer questions, but they also submit some sort of work that's going to show me just baseline skill level. I don't expect anyone to perform at a high quality, or I don't give them something that is a little bit more intensive. So if I'm hiring somebody in a paid capacity, I will probably ask them to do a skills assessment that is a little bit more involved. But for interns, I'm going to be training. I'm not expecting them to have a high skill level to begin with. They need to have they need to have some baseline skills, right? If I have somebody doing something operational, I'm a grammar nerd. I will notice like in an email where somebody put two spaces instead of one between two words. I just go to that. So if I have somebody that's going to be replying to an email or communicating with an event host or coordinator, I'm going to have them give me some little sample of typing, or I might give them an email and say, hey, correct this, like find great, like look at it for grammar errors or typing errors or something that they should have some basic skill in. And then after that, I rank. I go through and I review responses. I rank them with the system that I have. And then I kind of go with my gut from there. And if somebody technically outranks someone else, but with some of their qualitative answers, I'm like, think this person would be a better fit. Sometimes take an extra step and I will connect with them outside of a formal call. I might message them or something to that degree, but it's a pretty simple, quick process. And
Mhm.
so we'll have a deadline or due date when people have to get their initial application in, and then have a system set up to where they know when they're going to get a response, any next steps that might be coming up, and then the onboarding process after that.
How has AI affected this whole process for you? Because I'm just thinking like, oh, if part of what you're looking for is proper grammar, how often are you getting bad grammar? If somebody's like, chat GPT, write my answers for this
Yeah.
interview.
Well, Laura, from my side, from an application standpoint, I have no idea, if they're using ChatGPT or Claude or something else. And honestly, at this point, as long as I'll put that they are what they put in there, if they can use ChatGPT to put answers in an application, I mean, to me, they're gonna be able to use ChatGPT in an effective way later. So I'm not gonna knock somebody for it. I have not had to ask anyone that question. I think that would be really interesting to like hop on an onboarding call and go, did you use AI to create any of your responses or to do any of your work? But I do have my interns use AI in a couple of different capacities for certain tasks. So yeah, we'll see how that changes over time. Right now, it has not been a hindrance.
Mhm.
Right now it has been an advantage, but I will say it does take training, right?
Yeah.
I've had to train my AI platforms to use my voice, and even still, like you can't just copy and paste what they give you
Mhm.
90% of the time. So there are some checkpoints, even when an intern uses something with all your voice and brand and tone guidelines and all of that, where I still have some quality control checks, but instead of doing the whole process, I can do that final quality control, let them know my feedback, and then they can, fix the final pieces.
Mhm. Yeah, and I only asked because I feel like back when we were doing all of this as interns and,
Mhm.
employees and everything, we didn't have the option of using a tool like that
Yeah.
to mask any sort of communication deficit or, poor
Mhm.
grammar or anything like that. And so, I'm a big AI user, so I'm not anti using AI. And I also think depending on the response, like you said, maybe if somebody is a good AI user, you get the same level of response as if they were just writing it for themselves. It's just faster versus somebody who's not a proficient AI user. It's like, oh, you didn't really answer this question. So I'm gonna maybe not mark that as somebody I want to work with.
Right.
I just think it's like interesting where the skill set of writing used to be such a big one, I would say, for,
Mhm.
hiring anyone and their ability to work for you. And now it's like, does it even matter anymore if AI can just fix it for you? But I think it
Mhm.
matters, but it's like you said, if they can use it effectively, that's actually more important than not using it at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I still want there to be a human touch to things. We don't
Mhm.
have any processes in our business that are like fully AI. There are AI components throughout in different parts and pieces, but I always want that final human touch and human eyeballs on whatever it is that's being released, whether it's content, an email response, whatever it might be.
Yeah, definitely. Now, on the intern side, I know that there are sometimes some opinions about the whole concept of an unpaid internship.
Mhm.
What is in it for the unpaid intern that would even make it worth their while to do this or to actually do a good job? Because it's like maybe I'm too money motivated, but I'm like, listen, if I'm not getting paid to do something and I don't see like a very, very clear intrinsic value to the thing, I'm probably not even going to make time to do it, let alone do it well. What do you feel like is the motivation for someone who is coming in and not being paid to do the job at all, let alone do a really good job with it?
Yeah, so I love this question, and this is one of probably the top 3 that I get. So I appreciate that you asked it. I think part of this, what I have seen is part of it depends on which channel you're using to reach out for recruiting. So, for example, when I am advertising for a specific opening on my podcast or through my email list, the vast majority, and there are always exceptions, but the vast majority of the people that come from one of those channels is going to be interested in learning from me and learning the type of content that I put out there. So I still run my faith filled food freedom podcast for women who really want a Christ centered approach to food freedom and body image. And so for those women that come in, a lot of their advantage or the way that we provide mutual value exchange is that they get some sort of level of mentorship or coaching from me. Sometimes that's in a one-to-one capacity, a lot of times for me, because I am like, I have a very I don't want this to sound braggy. I have had clients that have gotten really, really great results consistently going through my course and coaching program. And so for a lot of them, they want access to the course. And so that is one way that I provide compensation for women who are struggling from a food freedom perspective is they might say, Brittany, I can't afford your course, but I really want to go through it. And when they complete the internship successfully, they get access to it. So that is one thing, like as a business owner, if you have content that you are producing in a coaching capacity and you want to give them either direct access to you for mentorship or coaching or a program that you run, that is one way to compensate them that is about as close to financial as you get. And then I have interns too, when they come to me from a university, most of them don't need course access, but they really want a couple of things. University students want raving recommendation letters, especially a lot of the dietetic ones that I work with are applying, when they graduate. These are undergraduate students, not dietetic interns. Most of mine are, I mean, I think I have a freshman right now. So anywhere from freshmen to seniors. Um, they need experience on their resume. They need skill building. They need very unique opportunities that aren't like, I got a few hours shadowing at this hospital and I did a few hours here at a volunteer event. When they get 6 months of I had a specific unique position within this company, and these were the things that I was responsible for. It gives me an opportunity to see their growth, to help them develop skills, and to be able to write them a rave recommendation letter. And mine, they get some additional mentorship after they graduate from my program as well. So I think about it, so many business owners discount, like, "Well, what are they gonna get from me? Why would somebody wanna work with me?" But Laura, I will tell you, there's a handful of coaches and podcasters that I could see the back end of their business and how they run things. I would volunteer to be their intern, for a set amount of time to go, wow, I would love to see how you do that. What does that actually look like on a day to day basis? What is your workflow or your process? Or how do you approach this? So, if you've ever been asked by anybody, can I just pick your brain on something? It's like, sure, please my internship and I'll show you. So, I think it's really easy, especially if you are super people oriented. and you just want to love on people. You don't want to feel like, I don't want to burden them with something. A lot of those, what, like CS type CEOs, I don't want to burden you with the thing. Let me just give you all the free information. That can be a big hindrance. People want to learn from you, even if you're just a couple of steps ahead of them. So when you can, and that's part of my application process and what I teach is make sure you know what the value exchange is going to look like because you want it to be, you want your internship program, the experience itself, and the way that you are choosing to compensate them, whether it's monetary or not. None of my interns have, I've never monetarily compensated an intern since the creation of my programs. And I have a stack of, well, minus that, a stack of letters from interns that have said, thank you for letting me be a part of this. Like, I got into the graduate program I wanted, or I just got this job and they asked me about my experience in your program. So you can't discount the things that you know, the experience that you have when there's probably somebody already in your community who wants to learn it.
Mhm. Well, I mean, I know there's lots of people who pay me a lot of money to learn from me and learn what we
Right.
do and see the behind the scenes. So, I think
Yeah.
if somebody's like, I can just give you time instead of money.
Hmm.
I can definitely see that being really valuable. And to be fair, like even the job that I had that really launched me into this whole online business thing in the first place, I was getting paid $15 an hour to do that. And that's not a lot of money. Like it's something. It helps me, help me pay for groceries and that kind of thing. But it's not like I was making a livable income working 10 to 15 hours a week at $15 an hour for somebody, right? So I think for me, a lot of that job, just created this now. I mean, I got that job 14 years ago, so now it's like this 14-year journey of
Hmm.
doing what I do now, and now I've made millions of dollars doing this work, and so I definitely think for the right person, the opportunity to learn from somebody who's ahead of them in a very structured and involved way and not just like a, you know, go delete spam emails and never talk to me kind of way. Cause obviously that's like, oh, that's not really helping me learn anything. I feel like that can be really valuable for the right person. And yeah, I mean, money's nice, but it's like, especially for somebody who's just getting into their career, they have plenty of time to make money. They don't necessarily need to make money from every single thing that they do. And I think learning those skills and learning how a business owner operates is way more valuable in the long term than just
Hmm.
how much money did they make over the span of 8 weeks or something.
Right. Right, right. When they can learn a valuable skill that they can then use that they would have had to go pay to learn elsewhere, either in continuing education capacity of some sort or an undergraduate degree. I have have thought like maybe I should go back and, get an MBA but I have gone through different programs to learn different skills that I have paid for that would be more than what I would have ended up paying for grad school, where if I had had an opportunity to learn certain skills and strategies and methods by being an intern, even in an unpaid capacity, I could have turned that around so quickly,
Mhm.
to increase my income and my impact as a business owner myself. So it's hugely valuable. And I'm not just saying that because I have run it. I have had interns tell me over and over again, I like this is something that I never learned in undergrad, and it has made the difference.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I even think about 2 people that used to work with me had become clients of mine that now run their own businesses, and I'm sure a good chunk of even what helped them get into it was working for me, kinda like what I experienced working for the guy I worked for. So,
Yeah.
I think all of these are really valuable experiences, and it sounds like the way that you help people hire and train and use interns is what makes it valuable for both people versus it being this like, "Oh, I feel like I'm wasting my time. They're not really getting anything that valuable. They're kind of phoning it in, and now I regret saying yes to this." And I don't think that's not good for anybody, right? Like, that's not a good experience for the intern, let alone the person trying to, like, run their business and then,
Right.
like, handle an intern at the same time. So, well, this is I now my wheels are turning about, maybe I should be considering interns in the future if I'm kinda scaling down a lot in my business right now as far as, like,
Mhm.
complexity and team volume and all of that, but I think if I did wanna bring somebody back in, I would definitely be like considering this as a strategy. So for people who are got their wheels turning about maybe I can get some help that I don't have to pay a lot of money for just to, get them out of the weeds, make sure that they're maintaining their profit margin. Cause I know we didn't hit record before we were talking about this, but one of the things I see a lot with even my higher level clients is like how much of their money that they're making ends up getting paid out because they overhired paid team
Mhm.
members to do
Yeah.
things. And I'm not anti-paid team members, like, I have multiple paid team members, but if you're like, "I'm making 30 grand a month in revenue, and I'm keeping 5 of that for
Mhm.
myself," like, that's a
Yeah.
problem, right? So I think it
Yeah.
doesn't have to just be that you can't afford a paid team. I think it can also be, do you actually need paid team to do the things that need to get done in the short term so that you can actually protect your profit margin and not make it so that all your money is going to other people, which is like the most depressing place to be in business. So
Yeah.
all of that
Yeah.
to say, oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I have worked with business owners too who are making multiple six figures and they do have paid team members. But when they can reduce the workload of their paid team members by delegating some of their workload to interns and they're not monetarily compensating them, not only does that improve their profit margin, but they're able to reallocate tasks or just have their paid employees or contractors go all in on the things that they are really skilled at doing, and even that creates increased income, profit margin. So, I love internships. I think they're like a wonderful fit across the board, whether you are, 2, 3 years into your business or you've been running it for 10 or 15 years. And like I said, it gives you so much more flexibility. And for the businesses that have somebody like an operations manager or you have somebody who is really good at in a management capacity, you can have them manage your interns. If you don't even want to do the week in, week out, and you have somebody that's really great at operations and quality control, it becomes a phenomenal way to step them up and say, hey, we're gonna get 6 people on your team as interns. And instead of you doing, tons and tons of hours, we're gonna put you in a more of a managerial capacity. You're gonna manage our internship program. So all of the flexibility of it. You can have, I usually maintain a team of anywhere from 2 to 6 interns at a time. I've got 3 right now. And I like the flexibility of it. You can choose as many or as few as you like, but there's a lot of different advantages.
I love that. Well, if somebody is like, "Ooh, I think I wanna do this or learn more about doing it," and they wanna do it in a way that's actually productive and helpful and not like, "Oh, I regret that and I wish I hadn't done that." What would be their next steps to connect with you or to get support from you in terms of, what do you do to even make this a thing?
Yeah, so I have a free limited podcast series where I walk you through how to delegate, how to start building a team of interns, and really how to just get you out of the weeds in your business so that you can start stepping into the CEO role without having to hire help. So it's super short episodes. They're very practical and designed to really get you to start thinking like a CEO instead of trying to do everything yourself and struggling to let go of that control. So you can check that out. You can find more information about that at brittanybraswellrd.com/advantage. Or if you want to hang out with me on Instagram, I use my DMs there. I'm not a huge social media person, but I love to chat there. So you can find me at Brittany Braswell RD if you have questions or just want to connect further.
Amazing, and I think you have a program as well if they wanted to actually get help directly with this, right?
Yeah, if you are ready to step in and you want the like, hey, I want to get started yesterday. I have a program called the Intern Accelerator, and it will literally walk you through step by step. And most people get through it in 8 to 10 weeks, and by the end of that 10-week mark, your internship program is launched. Like you have accepted interns. So if you are ready for that, you can learn more about the Intern Accelerator at brittanybraswellrd.com/TIA.
Amazing. Well, those links will be in the show notes for today's episode if you want to go check any of those out. Brittany, thank you so much for coming on and answering all my selfish questions about an internship experience. Because I'm like, like I said, we're kind of in the descaling simplification, like let's get back down to the brass tacks of what I actually want to be doing in my business. But I know that we're not going to stay there forever. And so I'm like very, very curious about this whole intern thing. Cause again, it was like the few times I've done it where it's an unpaid internship, it was just such a drain on my attention. And I didn't feel like I was necessarily getting anything super valuable from it. So, I think my perspective has definitely been shifted from this conversation. So
I love it.
amazing. Well, thanks for hanging out with us, guys. We'll see you here next week on the Nurse CEO podcast. Take care, everybody. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Nourished CEO podcast. And if this episode got you thinking about how you're actually wired to run your business, your next step is to take the CEO type quiz. Because here's the thing. Most of the business advice out there was built for someone specific. And if that someone isn't you, it doesn't matter how hard you work or how many strategies you implement. It's just never going to feel right, and it's never going to work as well as it should. Knowing your CEO type changes all of that. After you take the quiz, your results page will walk you through your natural strengths, your biggest blind spots, and a concrete game plan for your offers, messaging, sales, and even your calendar, all built around how you actually think and lead. Not generic advice, your specific direction. It takes about 5 minutes and it's completely free. The link is in the show notes, or you can go to lauraschoenfeld.com/quiz. And if you already know your type and this episode resonated with you, share the quiz with someone else who needs it. The right framework at the right time can completely change how someone sees their business. And honestly, that's exactly why I made this. All right, I'll see you next time on the Nourished CEO podcast.